Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back for another Positive Talk. First one of 2025. Hopefully, you all had a wonderful holiday season as well as a happy new year. Super excited to be jumping on another live with a fellow coach. I feel like the conversations I have with fellow coaches are always very enlightening conversations. So, we will go ahead and see if we can pull him in real quick. And then we will go ahead and get started. There we go. Get myself adjusted. It was colder this morning and now it's hot, so I'm trying to adjust. There we go.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you? I feel like my screen is like I need to adjust myself down. There we go. How's it going?
Yeah, everything's going wonderful.
Good,
Excited to
good,
be
good.
here. Thank you for hosting
Yeah,
this.
I'm glad you could make it. We met probably about a year ago on the Jay Shetty, and we've both done a lot of growing since then.
Yes, yes, indeed. It's been a journey. It's been
Awesome. Well, I will let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can dive into a conversation.
for sure. So, my name is Benron Oran Manoah, which is probably the most complex name in the entire world. I'm originally from the States. I live in Israel. I'm a mindset coach, and I specialize in helping high achievers overcome things like procrastination, fear of judgment, meaning, we are always worrying about what other people will think, which obviously holds us back, and the feelings of overwhelm when we're trying to be perfectionists and things like that. So everything around our mindset that will allow us to propel ourselves forward and reach our goals eventually.
Awesome. And I love that. And I think that there's definitely a high need for a coach in that realm for a lot of people here in the world. So I see that you've got a lot of certificates and stuff behind you. So when it comes to your personal journey and choosing this niche, tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a coach.
Yeah, that's a great question. My journey in becoming a coach, with all honesty, it came from a low point. Real honesty from rock bottom, right? I was essentially thrown into this world. From my own fallings, I eventually I broke and I decided there has to be, it's so cliche to say there has to be a different way. But that's exactly how I felt at the time. I knew I couldn't keep moving forward in this place. And that basically threw me into the mindset area, into psychology, human behavior, everything that has to do with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of times coaches and people who end up becoming helpers in some way or another have fallen into a place where they're like, I am not happy where I'm at and things need to change. And once you kind of get into that change, you just look back and see everyone else who's still stuck in that. And you're just like, oh, I want to help them
Absolutely.
because you know what it feels like to be on the other side. And when you're seeing so many other people needlessly struggling, you're like, there's a way I can help. Listen, I've got one.
100%. 100%. And a lot of it really is giving back to the community because one of the things that helped me the most was taking on a coach for myself. And I
Yeah,
feel that's one of the things that really drew me into becoming a coach
yeah,
as well, right?
yeah,
At the time in the beginning, right, when I was just starting out, because I was always helping people, giving advice, even dabbing in coaching a little bit, but nothing professional. And eventually, what I noticed is I was burning out. I was a CEO of a tech startup, right? And in that position, if like anyone who's at the top, he knows at the top it's lonely, and you're
yeah.
constantly working, and it's burnout is just a common theme there in that space. And when we talk about it, a lot of people they're asking, well, what does that really mean? For me, I was literally paralyzed, Ben. I was literally paralyzed. I was on the couch. I could not. You were talking about procrastination. I couldn't respond to any emails, texts, phone calls. I could barely decide what to watch on Netflix. I was really far out of it. And it took a lot of work to go out of that. And I call it rock bottom. I'm grateful for that experience today. But at the time, what I describe as rock bottom for me, I think Hollywood doesn't do it a service. You know, we have this image in our heads of some guy in a cell and he's drunk or something like that. But real rock bottom, it's here. And for me, it was when I felt like I was hopeless. There's no escape. And
Yeah.
that's what broke me at the time. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that so many people were going through the same things. I thought something was wrong with me,
Yeah.
you know?
And I mean, you brought up Hollywood. I feel like Hollywood sets up so many unreal expectations for the world.
Hmm.
Like we see lives shown over time in a quick 2 hour, if even that
Hmm.
long movie, and you see such a quick pace that we've come to this idea or mindset that that's how we're supposed to navigate life. That's how things are supposed to happen for us. And I feel like that shifts our mindset into these beliefs that can drive us into burnout, can drive us to rock bottom, because it's really easy, especially we've got social media as well,
Hmm.
where we're seeing people's reels of their vacations, and it's just like, how does this person go on 12 vacations a year? Like, how is this possible? Their family always looks picture perfect. And I try to tell people all the time with my page, like, I don't take my phone out when I'm struggling and go, look at me, bedhead, like feeling horrible, like don't want to get out of bed. That's not what I post. But that's what we're comparing ourselves to. We're comparing their highlight reel to these really deep things that we're going through. And we're like, why is no one else doing it? Why does no
Hmm.
one else feel this way? But most of us are in that journey. If you haven't navigated to get help, a lot of people are sitting in that space. So when it comes to you saying you've worked with a coach, like what do you think is that moment where you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to reach out to someone who may be a little bit more of an expert than I am.
Mm, that's interesting. You raised some good points. And what's the moment in which that happens? It's hard to say a specific moment here. I wouldn't want to say exactly what happened that when I snapped, so to say. I can say this, however. I believe it's Tony Robbins who explains it, but please don't burn me if I got the quote wrong. It's when the pain of staying where you are outgrows the pain of moving. Because none of us, we avoid discomfort as a human being, right? We avoid it. We don't want change. We don't want to be uncomfortable. And that's what change is. It's fear of uncertainty. Why take that next leap? Why speak out? Why put that new post up? Why do it? I'm good here where I am in my comfort zone. It takes pain to grow. Why live through that pain? Usually you won't, unless the pain of being stuck where you are outgrows the pain of growing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of people, when it comes to coaching in general, I tell people stop going out and trying to convince people that they need a coach, because until, like you said, they hit that pain point, they won't be able to make that shift. What you need to do is just make yourself available for when that shift comes, and let people know that you are a person that they can come to when it comes to when that burnout finally hits and you're like, I can't keep doing this. I can't wake up every morning feeling like this.
Yep.
And I think that it's really important for people to know that it comes in all different shapes and forms and at different
Sure.
stages of your life.
For sure.
For me, I started to realize burnout with my first journey into coaching, because I was trying to run a business that most people were running with like 10 or more people. And when you're healthy and in a really good mindset, that can work for a little bit. When you get sick, I caught COVID and I was down for a month and a half. Like, I got out of bed to do my coaching calls and went right back to bed. I took a super hot shower to clear myself out just so I could sit through an hour call, and then went right back to feeling like death in my bed. And when I was doing the work of 10 people, when I was healthy, it was doable. It was definitely slowly burning me down. But when I got sick, everything, it was like someone put in like one of those wild washing machines. It was just going everywhere, destroying everything in its sight. And I was just like, I can't keep doing this. And it affected my mindset, which affected my ability to post, which affected my ability to show up. And it just like everything that was going so well
Hmm.
just disappeared because I was just at rock bottom. I was I couldn't do anything that I needed to do. And I was like, okay, I need to change. And with intention, I started moving forward with a business that I am one person. And that one person needs to be respected. I was meaner to myself than I what any boss I've ever had in a corporate job. So I was like, I need to fix this. And going forward, I refuse to take on more than I can handle. And I've learned to ask for help, which was a really big thing for me because in my head, like asking for help meant I was failing. And that mindset had to be shifted for sure.
Yep. You raised a few points there. If I'm hearing correctly, Ben, you said one is in terms of expectations, right? You thought I need to be doing all of it. Two is the belief that you had around it, how you called mindset. In this case, your mindset was asking for help is a weakness.
Yep.
That's a belief that you had, right? We need to do it all ourselves. There's no reason we shouldn't. And those two things together, yeah, can obviously lead to burnout. We can't just sit and imagine something that's unrealistic and then want it to be real. It's like me saying I want to live on the moon and breathe underwater. It's not going to happen. But like you said before regarding Hollywood, we have these expectations. We see all these montages. And then we think, yeah, I can do it. But motivation only gets you so far. And that's what happens after you see a movie. You see a montage and you see, Rocky running up the steps and like, yes, I'm pumped. I can do it. Motivation won't last if you don't have the right tools to get you through, to continue, to persevere. Because we know that consistency is key in success. Every entrepreneur knows this, right? But so for me, for instance, what drove me crazy was finding the how. I literally referred to it as my missing link, and it obsessed me. How do I persevere? How do I stay consistent? Right? How? And I always give this example. It's like if you want to be healthy, right? But if you want to be healthy, then you know what you need to do. You know you should be eating a salad and not a pizza. But for some reason, you'll eat a salad 1 day, 2 days, three. If you're a rock star, on the fourth, you're gonna opt up for that pizza. How do you find that? What I thought was willpower. How do you find that strength to persevere, to change your habits, to change your behavior, so that you're in line with what you want? Why do we eventually self-sabotage? We know we want the salad, but no, we eat the pizza. Why? What causes us? So how do I find that? And that how I became obsessed. That's why I went into psychology, human behavior, to see how I can change myself, how I can help my loved ones, and how I can help professionals as well.
Yeah. And I feel like when it comes to diving into that conversation, there are so many different ways that we can take this conversation. And I think that when it came to a lot of people because I think a lot of people in today's world have put their eyes onto social media needing to be this big thing for them. And I realized that consistency is important, but there's an equation that you can create where consistency is easy, or you can take the equation where consistency is hard. And one of the things that I found when it came to my social media when I was posting every day was stockpiling and then starting once you had a stockpile, but always feed the stockpile, but let the stockpile exist there so that you always have something to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if you do have a month where you're sick, you're like, that's fine. Like, I can rest. I need to rest so that I can recover quicker because it's fine. I've got stuff in its place to keep going while I'm busy recovering. And it's about creating a life model reflecting the fact that you are human. Like, I think so many people build a business or build life around thinking they are a computer, that if you start having mess ups, you just pull the plug it back in, and you're good to go. But
No,
I
no
realized if I
controllables.
created the life that I'm a human, I get sick. I'm busy sometimes. Sometimes I'm not in the mood to smile for a camera. If I created a life that functions that way
Mm,
and caters to the fact that there will be days where I can't just get in front of the camera, I was like, that instantly made life so much easier. And I think that that is something that you can do in every aspect. Like, stop trying to create it to where it's like you're a machine. You are not.
you're
You will
not.
never be. So
But can I
don't.
challenge you here, Ben?
Yeah,
Is it okay if I challenge you a bit?
do it.
I know we're live, so if not, all good. But you see, again, you know what you needed to do. So what you described here, which is beautiful and very, very smart, but it's a strategy. So you're saying, okay, I'll create a stockpile, and then when I'm sick, first of all, way to go. You have a smart strategy because you're taking into account that you're a human being and not a machine. You're already a step ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But what drives you, what gives you that power to, again, how do I create that stockpile? I know what I need to do. I know I need to create that stockpile, but now instead of recording 10 videos, I'm sitting staring at my phone and then putting it aside and turning on the TV. I didn't create that stockpile for myself. And now I'm angry at myself because I didn't own up to my commitment. And when I will get sick, I don't have that stockpile. So I know what I need to do, but what drove you to be able to take action in the first place?
I think my driving factor is I know I'm capable of producing what I produce. And because I had that capability, I was like, okay, I am capable of doing something. So allowing myself space, because I definitely created habits all around me to kind of embrace the fact that I will get sucked into the doom scrolling on social media and other things. And for me, the reason I was able to kind of break that habit was I told myself, I can't control the world around me. I can only control myself.
Mm,
And I decided that if I set a goal of 10, I need to record 10 things tomorrow. If the environment at home wasn't good for recording, say there's someone leaf blowing for 2 hours outside my window, or the neighbors got their music turned up, I was like, you're going to be creative. And by the end of today, there will be 10 things recorded. Whether it's you're going outside recording by the river, you're going to the library and recording in one of those breakout rooms, you will find a way. Um, but I set that intention where it's like, this is what's going to happen. And I've even gotten past the point of perfection because that was another hurdle I had to jump
mhm,
over.
mhm,
Those 10 do not have to be perfect. They can be you. And once I fell into these mindsets of you don't have to be perfect, you're getting it done. It's okay if you slip up and look on Instagram, but by the end of today, there will be 10 if that's what I promised myself. But it's been a journey because, like you were saying, there's probably a lot of other things. I'm not sure if I hit on the how that you were going towards. There's probably a piece of that in existence, but I've been doing so many different tweaks to my life on this journey because I have fallen victim to so many different things.
mhm.
And when I'm working with new people, a lot of times it stands out like a sore thumb. You're like, oh, there it is. That's the thing. That's the thing holding you back. I think mine's gotten a little complex here lately, and
How
I've
so?
kind of trained myself.
Well, it's obvious that you obviously you've done a lot of work on yourself and around your mindset. So what would you tell someone who's hearing you now and says, "Okay, I also want to create those posts and I want to tell myself I'll do 10 and they don't need to be perfect, but is having trouble taking action and following through." And be it you named a couple of reasons, which also go back to the beginning of the conversation in terms of comparison, A lot of us compare ourselves to others, and they'll see your post and they'll be like, I'm not good enough. I won't mine aren't as good as Ben's. Why should I post that? Or I can't bring myself to do 10 videos. Where can I even start? Now I'm overwhelmed with too many tasks to do. So for someone starting out who hasn't worked on their mindset, how would you approach them and tell them, hey, do this? And they're telling you, I can't do this.
Yeah,
That's the
I
how.
I would say like just thinking, break it down, write down what the 10 are going to be. That that instantly for me removes a lot of the weight off my shoulder because just thinking 10 and then thinking of the recording and the work of editing and all of that instantly creates overwhelm because you don't know what those 10 are going to be. So I would say first step, like write them down. Like what are those 10 videos? And then start saying this one will be easy to do. This one's easy. Because the more steps you can make it into that are easy, the less daunting the whole task seems. And most things can be broken down into smaller, easier tasks that don't seem like, yeah, that's not happening today.
100%. Almost everything can be broken down into smaller chunks that are easy and give you the confidence. And basically what I'm hearing you say is, well, get to a point where you're confident you can achieve your goal. So forget the 10. Just start. Just write something down. And just decide on what it is. Right. And again, that's a strategy and it's part of it. What about if someone is fearing? You said that you overcame perfection. How did you overcome perfectionism?
These lives. Um, it's interesting because when I used to record YouTube videos and post them, I would sit there for hours and hours editing out every little like editing out any little space or rearranging everything to make it seem uh, what I would consider perfect. And then it just got to the point where it was like, you know what? I can't do anything else to this video. It's going out. I know some people in my life that have still not posted some of their content because it wasn't exactly right. But my lives got me to the point where it's live. I can't edit this, and it created this mindset in me where it's just like it's okay to not show up perfect. Um, and also that's how we connect with one
Love,
another
love that.
is our imperfections. So I think for me, it was taking the action, and maybe it's record the 10 videos but not post them. Like the repetitive behavior of recording, you will naturally get better
Hmm.
each time you do it.
Hmm.
And then maybe the 20th video is something that you're happy with. I watched your reels that you've been creating lately, and that's something that I have not yet done. I've created small, short reels, but I am a long form person. I do long interviews, I do long YouTube videos. The video outtakes of me recording trying to do a reel with the energy that you have, like, I laugh at myself all the time because I'll like slide in trying to be funny and I'll fall off the table or I'll just come up to the camera and forget all the words that I was about to say. So like I applaud when I see other people doing that. I'm like, yeah, that when we're watching it and consuming it, we don't realize like the energy and effort that goes into those types of things. So I could easily look at yours and be like, oh, he got that on the first try. Uh, or I could sit here and go, you know what? He's been doing it and he's getting better at it. If I practice and consistently did it, I would also get better at it.
Sure, for sure. First of all, thank you for the compliments, but it's also what you just described are two different perspectives, right? That's a mind shift right there.
Yeah.
And both of them, by the way, lead again to the beginning of the conversation where you were talking about comparison. And we know that comparison is the enemy of joy, basically. I, excuse me. When we compare ourselves to others, we're never satisfied. It takes a lot of awareness to realize, oh wait, I'm comparing myself to him. Well, like you said, maybe he's been doing this a while. Maybe this is his 10th take, and maybe he's been editing it, and maybe he's practiced. Can I also do that? can I grow? Can I improve? And that's having a growth mindset. I love a different perspective of looking at things. I think it's Wayne Dyer who said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I love that quote. We need to just be showing up authentic, understanding that we're human, that we're growing, that it's okay not to be perfect. And if I'm asking myself, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I not compare myself to others? How do I overcome this fear? I've broken it down to a pretty simple equation where on one hand, it's acceptance. And I think Mel Robbins says this beautifully with the let them theory. I don't know if you read his new book that came out,
Yeah.
Let Them. Like, people can say what they're you can't control what other people say. So on the one hand, understand what you can control, and then on the other side of the equation, take ownership on what you can control. So accept that you can grow, that you can do this and this and this. And when you compare yourself instead of other people, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, knowing that you're improving and having that simple equation, which isn't easy to do. It's very simple, not easy, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what you can't control and knowing what you can control and then taking action from there is a huge help.
Yeah. And on this journey of connecting with so many other coaches, I think that this was one of the biggest lessons that the successful coaches started learning was you can't compare yourself to how quickly you see some of your peers growing in certain areas because one, you don't know how many years before they've had experience in tech. They've had experience in marketing. They've had experience in building content or developing their coaching resources. All of those things you have to take into consideration. Like it may take you a little bit longer to produce a reel because it's your first time doing this, whereas maybe this person's been doing it for a while, but for another thing.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time a lot of my success from being a coach is from all my previous experience at all my other jobs falling into a beautiful line that has effectively helped me. There are definitely areas that I need to grow, and being an entrepreneur, that was like a huge wow. I know nothing. What do I need to do to grow? I know nothing here. Um, but I was blessed with a lot of experience from my previous jobs that did really benefit me being an entrepreneur. And in that comparison, we have to take into consideration the whole picture, which most of the time we can't see. Like, I can't see Mel Robbins' whole story. I can only take what she shared with us in her books, her podcasts, and other things that she puts out. But coming to the realization that most people who are good at something have put a lot of work, even if they have like a natural talent, a musician, a singer, they may have raw talent, but the ones that make it and become big also put a lot of work into it. Beyonce is not up on stage doing what she's doing because she came out of her mom just like a natural. Like she puts a lot of work into it that she makes what she does look easy. Just assume that about everyone and then say, what can I learn from them? And then how can I apply that to myself to where, I mean, people tell me all the time that what I'm doing looks like I'm doing it so easily. And I'm like, haha, do you know how much effort and work I put into that? Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. All that work makes it look very flowing right now. But I think it's important for people to understand it takes a lot of work in the back behind the camera.
Sure, for sure. I think it all goes into the mindset because if you don't have that, we spoke earlier about motivation, right? But it's not just the motivation for the way I see it, at least. It's having two things to be able to do that. The first is a clear goal, and the second is a clear reason for that goal. If you have a strong why, you can overcome any how. You can overcome any obstacle that may lie in the way.
Yeah.
So yes, you'll want to do the videos. Yes, you'll want to post. Yes, you'll want to move forward in your career and launch your business and be a powerful entrepreneur and grow. But unless you set very clear goals and have a very, very strong reason to do so, you'll be avoiding taking action. And you can compare yourself all you want. You need that fuel day in and day out to be able to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Clear goals, I think are one of those things that people underestimate because when you say clear goal, I think you should dive into that a little bit more
Mhm.
because saying I want to start a business is not a clear goal. It may seem like a clear goal, but that's such a surface level piece to it. Uh, what would you say like would be pieces that someone would need to understand of having a clear goal?
That's a great point. I love that. In terms of goals, well, I'll take a step back first of all, and right off the bat acknowledge something here regarding goals that everybody asks, especially when I speak to individuals. Almost everyone says yes to this question. Is your goal to have more money? And almost everyone just raises their hands like,
No.
yes, I want more money. And I'm like, no, your goal, it's not your goal. Let's think about that for a minute. And I want to start right off the bat with that money aspect of goals because it's something that's, it's a controversial, it's a difficult topic. I'll change the word because I'm fumbling. It's a difficult topic, but is so intriguing to so many of us. And right off the bat, say that money, and I don't care if you say, well, let's get specific. I want 100 million. I have a clear goal. No, so money isn't a goal.
Yeah.
Money is never a goal. Money is only two things. It only will always be two things: a result or a means. It's either a result of your energy, of being good at what you do, of making the sale and getting something in return for your energy, right? An exchange of energy, or it's a means to getting something, a means of hiring, again, exchanging energy, a means of acquiring more, whatever it is, a house, security, a car, whatever it is. Money is never the objective, it's what money will get you. That's the real goal. So, right off the bat, let's put aside the money as being a goal because money can never be a goal, right? It's what money will get you. So, with that in mind, and now let's talk about having a clear goal. What I do with my clients, I love using the SMART goal context
Mhm.
when you try and make it first of all very specific. So I want a house. Okay, fantastic, great. Where? How big? How many rooms? Right? Is it an apartment? Is it a single family? Do you have a yard? What color are the walls? Get super specific on what it is you want. Is it realistic? Or is that something that you can even achieve? Right? If I say I want a house on the moon, is that possible? Probably not. So why even start attempting the goal? You'll just say, nah, screw that. Right? Is it I'm sorry, I want to change it a little bit. See, it's alive, and I got confused also. I misspelled smart. Not so smart of me. S for specific, M for measurable. So we want to measure, right? If we're quantifying something, how big was the house? That would be the M. A is achievable, meaning we can get it. And R, the way I changed it in difference with what you'll see on Google probably, I make it into reason. And we spoke about this earlier, having a clear reason for this goal. So why is this important to you? I want a house because it'll give me security, it'll give me stability, it'll give me a place to provide and take care of my family, my loved ones. So that having that clear reason. And then finally, T is time bound. By when? And that's how you can create a clear goal and making it more specific, more realistic, achievable, reasonable, understandable, and also having that emotion behind the goal, why I want to achieve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I
I,
would create a SMART goal.
I love that when you were talking about like making it more specific, the way I like to get people to understand how specific they need to be is if you don't have people sending you pictures of homes saying, I think I found your dream home, you're not being specific enough because you should be so specific that when you're talking to people about it, that image becomes something that they can understand. If they can't understand your goal, then it's not, you haven't laid it out well enough for someone else to understand it. Because the universe, the world needs to know what you want. And if you haven't made it like picture perfect clear, then we can't help. Like when I'm working with coaches and I'm like, what type of client do you want to work with? If they can't paint something that instantly triggers, oh, I have a friend. I could send them your information. if I'm still sitting there at the end of the conversation, like I have no clue who you want to work with, you haven't become specific enough for me to understand. And then when you were talking about like the T, having that timestamp of like, you, this is when you're going to have that house. I found that that's one of the most important things because when you start moving closer to that timestamp, your brain starts to become creative of how to make it happen. If you just keep moving that goal, then you can remain lazy in your way of trying to obtain that goal. But when you say this is happening, and this is what I do all the time, like I put a seminar on the calendar. Most of the time it's not even completed, but because I put it on the calendar saying April, it is happening. Like between now and April, I the more I've done it to myself, the more I realize that starting now is a better idea than waiting until the week
For
before.
sure.
But the first couple of goals, just by putting that time that was publicly seen by everyone,
It
it
gave you
made me work
accountability,
harder.
for sure.
But like I think that those things are really important for people to understand. Like having a specific goal means that you can describe it to other people and they also understand it. Like if they're still lost, like you might not have gone as specific as you need. And also, layman's terms, you should be able to speak to someone who has no idea about like the housing market. If you can start to explain things simple, then that means that you have an understanding of it. If you have to give like this broad, super complex, crazy equation type of thing, that's you haven't simplified it yet. So make it specific and then simplify it because a simple little package is easy for other people. I had people tossing things in my lap because I verbalize what I want and I've made it so simple that people are like, yeah, I understand you. Here's what you need. Where do I send it?
Mm, nice. You're putting yourself out into the universe in this place of allowing and to being open to receive when you're doing it. And keeping it simple as it sounds, is sometimes very hard to do as well, especially when you're just starting out. So I just want to point out, and for our listeners, to also give yourself that room of self-compassion and knowing that it'll get easier and clearer with time,
Yeah,
and it also will evolve with time. Our goals change naturally as time goes. Right? All of a sudden you have a family. So the house that you wanted in first, just a small apartment, now all of a sudden you want something bigger, and you also need a different car. So our goals change, and things can change, and we adapt with what happens. So also just keeping in mind to give yourself that space of self-compassion, of self-acceptance as you're moving along. So I just wanted
yeah,
to bring that up there as well. So
yeah.
Ben, what do you think is the biggest thing that holds, because you speak with so many professionals, what do you think is the biggest challenge that people face that causes them maybe to procrastinate or to not take action? Because we mentioned, not having clear goals, worrying about what other people think, being overwhelmed with the task and not breaking it down. What do you think is the biggest challenge holding people back?
I think being too hyper focused on the one solution that you think will work and not being open to other solutions being presented on the way. There have been so many times where I thought this was the straight way to my goal, and I'd hit a wall, and I'd spend so much time
Mm.
like, why is this wall here? Why can't I get over this? Who put this wall here? Whose fault is it? And all those things, focusing on this wall and not looking over and seeing a door to walk through and get to the goal. I think that that's been the biggest thing that coaches have been able to help people with is like pulling people back a little bit and saying, now let's take a wider look. Like let's take a 180-degree look and see if there's another way. Because especially if you don't have a team of people that you're working with, And sometimes even when you have a team, if you don't listen to them, it's like you're working by yourself. But having that ability to say, okay, here's a wall, like let's step back and see if there's other options and possibilities, because people spend too much time at that wall, and I've spent too much time at that wall. Sometimes it's because of fear. Like, I can make myself look really busy on this side of fear, and people are like, wow, you're doing so much work, and I know I'm not doing what I should be doing because
Hmm.
I'm fearful of it. Whether it's I'm fearful of posting online, so I'm creating tons of resources and doing all this stuff over here. But I know to get clients I need to make myself visible to the world. But people are like, my family, my friends, they're like, wow, every day he's doing work, but I'm not doing the work I should be doing. So you have to learn how to step through that fear. So if you run into that wall, don't use it as an excuse for why you're not getting to your goal. Say, I ran into a wall. Do I climb over it? Do I look for another route? Like, what do I do? Don't pull out all your stuff and be like, well, this is my new home. Here's where
I
I'm going
love
to
that.
live. I think that that's been the biggest thing that I've seen over and over and over again with people, even with people who have had businesses for 20 plus years.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. And what you described as hitting that wall, you were even a step ahead. You even noticed the wall. You acknowledged that it was there. And the mindset you approach it with, okay, how do I overcome this challenge? Some people take the victim mindset and like, why is this wall here? Why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be here. Who's to blame? But having that shift of perspective and then trying to figure out how I solve it. And then you went into describing when you were, being so busy but not really achieving anything. And it's funny because just yesterday I had a call with someone, and he said something that I think resonates with anyone who will listen. He said, "Have you ever had a day where you're so busy, you've done so much, and you at the end of the day you feel like you didn't complete anything at all?" And I think we've all had those days. And the way I responded to that, two things came to mind immediately. One, it depends on what you're doing, right? And you can either be effective or efficient. If you're efficient, you're getting a lot of tasks done very, very quickly. You're emptying the dishwasher while also putting on the laundry or whatever it is that you're doing. You found some super way of doing things very efficiently. But if you're being effective, you're now tackling the important stuff, not just the urgent stuff. That's when the big needle mover is really worked upon. That's when you see the real change, the real results, is when we're also being effective and choosing to focus on the important tasks that really help us. And that's when we feel satisfied. And the second thing that came to mind immediately was, well, what do you choose to focus on? Do you choose to focus on all the things that you didn't complete, or can you find gratitude in the things that you did complete? Or can you give thanks for what we did do? Can you give yourself some self compassion, some leeway, and say, "Hey, I'm not a total failure. I'm not a total screw up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't do everything I wanted to. Well, let's learn from this. Why didn't I do it? What was I avoiding? Because in essence, and that's a form of procrastination, by the way, that we a lot of us don't realize. It's a sneaky form of procrastination where you want to do something, but what's that? The dishes? Of course, the dishes are way more important for sure, top priority right now. All right, it is just a form of procrastination. So let's sit down and realize, well, what did I avoid? Why did I avoid? And that takes a lot of self work, a lot of reflection, and being honest. What am I avoiding here? And professionals really help with that. They give you that clarity. You said, take a step back from the wall. That's where a coach comes in, because they pull you away. Like, wait, hold up. Why did you avoid that? Let's shine a light there. What's behind those bushes there? What's going on? And then you have to acknowledge it. You find that way. If the coach knows what they're doing, they'll allow you to see what's really going on. And once you shine a light on it, it's much easier to move that block and move forward and see that door that's right next to you instead of trying to hammer at the wall and nothing's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, there have definitely been people I've jumped on a call, and like in like the little notes that they put for why they wanted to have the call, they're like, this is what I'm struggling with. And I've noticed when we jump on the call, how quickly they will start talking about everything else and avoid the topic of what they said they needed help with, because there's that fear that comes up. And you were talking about like we our bodies naturally guide us to comfort. Like we will even sabotage our own self when we scheduled a meeting to get the help we need to overcome this wall or bush, whatever is in front of us. And then when that moment comes, we still sabotage ourselves because it's uncomfortable to sit in that space where it's something that we need help with. And I think that that's another mindset shift that I became comfortable with. I used to do this room with my friend Val. It was called Making the Uncomfortable Comfortable. And we would just talk about all the topics across the board, all the uncomfortable ones. There are definitely times where we had to like tap out and let someone else speak because the room got heated, because people's opinions are different. Maybe it's something we're uncomfortable speaking about when it comes to our own flaws. But when I started getting comfortable with that, where I was just like, sometimes life is uncomfortable and that's okay. Then I'm like, okay, I need to make that call. Here we go, making that call. I don't sit there and think about it. And that's something people start noticing about me is I just do things. And I'm like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. Promise you. It's
Can
not
we level
fun.
that out?
But it's like once you start making it comfortable for yourself to be uncomfortable, a lot of growth is possible.
I agree 100%. And I love that. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I love that phrase so much because it's so true because that's when the magic happens, right? When you're finally doing the task that you've been avoiding so much. And I'd like to even add to what you said and take it a step further when you fall in love with the discomfort. And then people look at me like, how do you fall in love with discomfort? Why? If everything in our human psychology says to do the opposite. And the answer is very simple. It's shifting your mind, right? That mind shift. Well, let's have one more perspective on it. Why is that uncomfortable feeling there? It's because of worrying for you, right? It comes from love, a place of love. So let's make a mind shift and instead see it as a compass. And I try to practice this daily, right? If I'm uncomfortable, I say great, thank you, because it means I'm on the right path. It means I'm headed in the right direction. I use it as a compass. And when I see it in that way, it helps me. For again, we're talking about the how. How do I get comfortable being uncomfortable? For me, that's the how. I change the way I look at it. If I'm uncomfortable, I say, great. It means I'm headed in the right direction. And that takes practice, right? Because nobody likes being uncomfortable. But the
Yeah.
more I practice that, personally, practice seeing, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm on the right way. This is my compass. This is guiding me. It makes it easier to fall in love with that process, and then you take more action and more action and you get that momentum going, and then all of a sudden you look back and like those things, poof, piece of cake, on to the next challenge, and you've all of a sudden grew so far, so much that
Yeah.
we never thought was possible.
And I think that that whole concept can be applied to like failure as well. Like take failing at something and become comfortable with it and loving to the fact, because I learned that like when I started failing, instead of celebrate like or being disappointed about the failure, celebrating that the action was taken that I failed at, because most people don't even take that step. So celebrating the failure as I'm celebrating the action I took. And failure just means this wasn't the right way. Then my curious mind starts saying, well, what could I have done different? And then I try again. But it's that like first step into something where you're like, it's okay. And I also got to a point in life where I was succeeding in a lot, and starting over and being bad at something was really hard for me to do because I was afraid that if I suck at something down here, that it would disqualify me for all the success I achieved up here. But once I built that relationship with like, no matter how successful you are here, there's a billion other things in this world that it's your first time ever experiencing it. You're not going to be good. Just because I'm a great life coach over here does not mean I will ever be good at surfing. So I will have to take that first class and grab the board and fail and fall off and scrape my knees, bump my head. There will be a lot of bumpy roads on that new, but I can slowly bring that up if I decide to take the time. I can learn how to dance. I'm a horrible dancer. My sisters are both phenomenal dancers, but they've spent their entire lifetime dancing. I put my time elsewhere. I was reading and excelling in other spaces. Just because my sisters and I lived in the same house and we've lived on this earth pretty much the same amount of time doesn't mean that because they're here in dancing and I'm here that I failed. It just means that I invested my time over here to get here as a coach, as an entrepreneur. I think it's important for people to realize like your hard work doesn't get discredited just because you start new. And even when I've taken being very successful in one corporate company and jumping to another, there's still a ladder to climb at this new place. I bring with me all the wisdom that life has given me at this past job that I can apply here, but I'm still going to climb a ladder at this new space because they don't know all this stuff that I've achieved over here because it's not the same company. But it's okay to exist in that space, and you want to form a positive relationship with that.
I love that. I love that you said that, Ben. I think I have just one minor correction. You
Okay.
said that's okay. You said uh, sometimes we need to change the way we look at failure because sometimes we tend to focus on the negative aspects rather than, for most of us, we tend to focus on the negative aspects of what where I failed rather than on what I accomplished. And
Okay.
one very minor correction, it's not most of us, it's all of us. Every single human being, and I want to point that out to anyone who's listening, right? It's natural because that's just how the way our brain is wired to focus first on the negative. That's just a survival standpoint. That's how we became as human beings. We need to focus on the on the negative in order to survive. That's why we're wired that way. So every single one of us, because we say that we'll focus on the positive, right? How? I can't. I still see the negative. What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. It means you're a human being and not a machine. Yes, you'll see the negative. But with that, acknowledge that, see it's there, give thanks to it if you can, and then move forward to focusing on what you did accomplish. And again, that takes practice, right? But it's learning to shift your focus and from there drawing your energy towards it, what you really want. And that's what allows you to move. Because as you can tell, I'm a very practical person. Like I need to know how you achieve something. Don't just tell me to think positive. I don't want
Yeah.
to. Tell me how.
Yes. Yeah. I think I recommended the Biology of Belief book. I think I still have it. Yeah. I recommend this
Fantastic
one
book.
to everybody
Fantastic book.
because I'm the type of person that like you said, telling me to just think positive, like I need to understand all of it and why thinking positive has any type of impact. And that book was recommended to me by someone that I was being taught by when I first jumped into coaching. And they're like, you should read this because it goes all the way down to like a molecular cell level of how your body responds to different things when you're in a positive mindset versus survival mindset. And I just recently bought a book from Barnes and Nobles where it talks about the things that you watch and consume, whether it's social media, whether it's movies, TV shows, all of those things, impacts the way that you navigate the world. And I thought it was going to talk about mindset, but it went down to like measuring the oxygen and carbon dioxide coming out of your mouth during different experiences. They like were in a movie theater measuring the air, and like when intense action packed parts of the movies were happening, what your body put out
Mm-hmm.
was different than what it put out when it was a love scene or other things
Mm-hmm.
because your brain, different chemicals are being released and used during different emotions, and it literally changed the air quality in the theater based
Yeah.
upon what people were feeling. So when I tell people, I'm like, I researched down to such a deep level because I need a understanding that deep to, when I tell people and say these are my beliefs, I'm like, Yeah, I believe it on a molecular level. Like
That's
I go
right.
that far down.
But it's true. And by the way, the way I love describing, because I trying to keep it simple, it's all it is energy, right? It's vibrations. And there are many experiments on this. And it sounds, sometimes it sounds like science fiction. There's one where they took some blood from a person and then moved it all across the world and sent him vibrations, and they saw the molecular structure of his blood sample change across the world. It has that big of an impact. There's another person, don't call me out on his name, but he took water, and there's a book on this also. He took water and froze it with different songs being played. So when there was like this beautiful song, like classical music, you saw a beautiful shape. And then when there's heavy metal and cursing, you saw ugly shapes. Everything is frequencies. We don't necessarily see them, but everything is frequencies. He went a step further and just placed words, wrote down words. So he wrote down love and put some water and then froze that. And the same thing happened with words like love, happiness, joy. You saw beautiful crystals form. And when he put it on top of hate, discouragement, racism, you saw crystals were all flawed, all messed up. Everything radiates energy. Everything goes out as frequencies, and it sounds far fetched. It sounds strange in a way, but that's all it really is. And there's now we know there's so much science and so many articles and so many experiments to back it up. I think only now we're catching up with what Stoics and people knew so many, thousands of years ago, even to biblical formats of things. We knew this intuitively, but now I think science is catching up much faster than we ever thought possible. And it allows people like us on a practical, like, why does it work? How does it work? We finally
Yeah,
know how, because there we have those books. And that's a fantastic book, by the way.
yeah.
Pathology of Belief. Love it.
Yeah, I definitely when it comes down to all of those different things, like you said, it seems it's almost like like it's fiction. It comes right from a fiction book.
Yeah.
But when you sit there and think about how powerful all of those things are, like it can affect your entire day, or you can choose to realign yourself. There have been multiple times where I've experienced something traumatic, but I need to do something really positive later that day. And I'm like, I need to clean my energy right now because I can't bring this energy to this event that I'm about to speak at. So it's important for you to acknowledge that it exists, like, and people call it lots of different things, whether it's got religious context, whether it's a spiritual, some people it's witchcraft, magic. So, as I've watched and seen all of these different people talk about almost the same thing, just labeling it different, I'm like, okay, so we've all come to the conclusion that it exists. We just haven't decided the name for it yet. But yeah, it's
100%.
definitely there. And that's why meditation works. That's why so many things that maybe we've listed or labeled as woo woo, uh, it those things have important pieces of the equation tied into them to kind of help you navigate. And I honestly, the more I've dove into this, I've been able to reflect on my life before and be like, oh, that's why that happened. That's why this happened. Ah, okay, this makes more sense now. And I can apply it back because sometimes it's hard to apply it to your current situation where you don't have all the facts laying in front of you yet because a lot of it's still behind the dark veil of unknown. But reflecting back on things, it's easy to kind of take that knowledge and say, I see now. That makes sense now. So,
Yeah. Like life can only be understood backwards, looking backwards. All right.
yeah, yeah. And
Love it.
I always tell people, like, your confidence level, be aware that if you're a person that's taking steps into personal growth, anytime you are choosing growth, you are choosing to step into the unknown. And it will feel scary. It will make you feel like you're not smart. You're not. The amount of times I've stepped into new things and I'm just like, I am so stupid right now. I have no idea what I'm doing. I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room. That's okay. Like, you are allowed to exist in spaces where you are not smart and grow in that space. But just be aware, like, when you look back, you can see everything that you've accomplished and be proud of that. But anytime you're sitting in a space where you're about to grow, don't expect yourself to feel like this almighty Superman, Superwoman person, because in that moment, it's you're in the wave learning how to ride it, and you're not going to feel like you know what you're doing, but you can always reflect back and say, I've gotten through 100% of the things that life has thrown me so far, and I'm here today working on getting through the next thing that life has thrown on me, and be proud of that version of yourself and reflect on the wisdom that you learned there, because all of that wisdom can help you with where you're currently at. Don't forget the wisdom that you've come through to get to where you are today, because it's very beneficial to have that wisdom sitting with you in new challenges.
100%. 100%. Steve Jobs said you can only, Steve Jobs said you can only connect the dots in reverse. You got to trust that everything is leading you to exactly where you need to be. You have to have that trust. Obviously, you're learning, obviously, you're growing, and you can't necessarily see how this setback or this failure or what you got out of this job that you didn't like today, you might not see how it's affected you, how it's helped you. Eventually, you'll see a picture becoming clearer and how everything you're doing is helping you grow, helping you learn. So I would just add one thing, which is enjoy the process. You're going through it anyways. So learn to love life. You only get this one opportunity. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that's something I've learned recently. I would definitely sit in this moment with a lot of stress, but more recently, I've learned to just be. I laugh at things that are hard, and I'm like, it's hilarious how hard this is right now. But I'm going to keep trying, and I'm just going to keep going and keep that positive energy wrapped around me, and just keep meeting awesome people like you and all the other coaches I've gotten to meet, and yeah, just keep growing.
100%. I love it.
Awesome.
We keep growing. We keep improving.
Yeah, I see that we've gone past the hour, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here and doing this. And the floor is yours. If there's anything you would like to promote, if there's anyone that wants to work with you as a coach, um, let them know.
Uh, well, well, thank you. I didn't come prepared for that. I'm just here spitballing and hopefully giving some insights and inspiring and helping people, shedding lights on the things that held me back and are holding so many other people back. So I guess the only call to action, I guess, that I could say is if you're interested, if you find yourself worrying about what other people think, if you find yourself holding back on taking that big step and being bold and launching that business, putting in that post, you know what you need to do, but you're still not taking in the steps. And it's so many different fears. If it's fear of being perfect, fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success, which is often overlooked, then I would love to hop on a 15-minute friendly connection call. I'd love to learn about your experience because I'm always looking to connect with people and hear about what they're going through. Because just like you, Ben, I think we can always improve and we can always learn from one another. And if I can help anyone and shed some light on what's going on, and we know how these talks, even if they're very brief, how much light they open on these opportunities and how much they allow people to suddenly that aha moment, then I'm grateful to be able to provide that guidance, that service, and to help individuals grow. So I'm just grateful to be in this place and hopefully support people on their own journey, on their own path of growing and improving and shifting that mindset into something more empowering and enjoying the journey in doing so. And of course, achieving their results.
I love it. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on here. I'm glad that you and I connected back a year ago through the Jay Shetty program. And like always, if there's ever anything that I can do to help you, let me know. I wish you the best of luck for 2025. Uh, just from the conversations we've had today, as well as other conversations, you've got a brain full of wisdom, and I know a lot about your story, and I love you as a person, and I think anyone that gets to work with you as a coach would be very lucky. So keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, let me
Man,
know if
thank you
there's
so
anything in
much.
2025.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for having me and hosting this and doing all the things that you do and supporting so many fellow coaches. I know how much work and effort you've put into it, even if sometimes people may overlook it. I know the behind the scenes. And this person is so remarkable and so caring and so loving. Ben, I love you, brother. Thank you for this amazing time together. And yeah, I'm so grateful that we've connected. And if I can support you in any way, obviously, you you know you got it as well.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, you have a good rest of your evening, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.